Hi there, Sue. Thank you for being in conversation with me, Hyacinth Fraser from Property in Action. So just talk to us about what you do, how you came into property, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so I've been in property for more than 30 years, and I got involved because my dad's always been involved in property, only in a small way. But I was really lucky. I had a really forward-thinking dad. So he was a student landlord back in the 70s,
Wow.
and before there was buy-to-let, before there were interest-only mortgages. So I'd grown up with a dad who was involved with property. He probably had 4 or 5 properties that he owned jointly with his brother.
So how did he get you involved in that?
So when I was 21, my dad had found a shop with a flat over it, and he said, "Sue, I found a property. I think you should buy it because I think it would be a good option for you." And because I'm a dutiful daughter, I went and did it. So I went to see my dad's bank manager, and his bank manager said, "Yeah, of course we'll give you the money, but we'll want your dad to guarantee it and for your dad to be your guarantor," which obviously I didn't want to happen. If I was going to do it, I wanted to do it as an individual. So I then went and found a bank manager myself, went and presented to him, put the business proposal forwards, and luckily he said yes. And that's how I started. So I didn't do anything after that, probably for about 16 years. And then I started to invest. I bought some flats with one of my friends, and we decided on flats as a strategy initially because we thought they were easier to manage.
So why did you get into property 16 years after buying your first property? Why did you go back to it?
Because I was in a position where I was in a highly paid job. I was working in recruitment. It's a sales job. I was getting like lots of commission, and decided that I really should do something with it rather than just frittering it away on holidays and designer clothes and everything else. And one of my friends wanted to do it as well. So that we could then sort of like divide the risk, we decided that we'd go into it together, because at that stage then it meant if we ended up with a property that was empty and we had to pay a mortgage, we'd split the cost of the mortgage between the two of us. So as I say, it was sort of like 16 years later that I started to buy, and then really went into business with my sister about 2007, 2008, because my dad at that stage had sold off all of the properties that he had. He decided that he wanted to be out of the property. He said, "I'm too old, I don't want to do it any longer." And because I had a full-time job, when they wanted to dispose of them, I wasn't in a position to take over management. So Dad put the money into stocks and shares, and of course then the market crashed. So they lost a chunk of money, and Dad decided at that point, right, okay, let's take the money back out of that and let's put it back into property, because property, even though it's cyclical, increases in value.
Absolutely.
That was then sort of like Mum, Dad, myself and my sister. We then decided that as a family we were going to get just more involved with the property. So my sister and I now own 24 properties jointly.
Lovely.
My portfolio now is 42 properties.
In what area of the country?
All in Birmingham, Birmingham, except for 2 flats that I own in Stonehouse, just outside Stroud. So those are just something that's like totally apart really from the rest of my portfolio, purely and simply because we were offered them by a builder who needed to off the books for the end of his financial year, and he offered us to them at such a silly price. We couldn't say no. But yeah, everything else that I own is local.
Okay, so 42 properties in Birmingham. Can you just talk to us a little bit about your broad range of strategies?
Yeah, definitely. So I've over time I've just developed a range of different sort of like business models, again because it helps spread risk. So I've got some 2 and 3 bedroom houses, I've got some 4 bedroom houses, and I've got 1 HMO, and I've got some serviced accommodation apartments. So The 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses, they're a mix of what we do with them. Some of them are just rented to families, some are rented to young couples that are working in professional jobs, and some of them are rented out to housing associations or supported living companies for social housing. And as I say, I've got one HMO as well.
It's unusual, isn't it, for people to be doing social housing. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how you got into that area of property, and also how you source your clients?
Yeah, of course. So I am really fortunate that because I've got such a passion for property, it's like everything that I do is all interlinked. So about 9 years ago, the letting agent who I used to use to find my tenants, he was a one-man band. He wanted to increase his business. He knew I was a really good salesperson, so actually invited me to join his business. So that was how I started working lettings. And I set up my own lettings agency about 4 years ago now. And we had a property that we were marketing for a landlord that was a 5-bedroom property. And I had a supported living company approach me to say, would that landlord consider renting his house to us for supported living? And that was how I started to become involved with social housing, because it was the first time that I'd come across this. But it was a good option for the landlord because it was going to give guaranteed rent for 4 years. And the really key thing that I would say to anybody that's interested in working with any housing associations or supported living companies is you need to find the ones who do what they actually say they should be doing.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Right, so you've got some supported living companies, because how they are, as my understanding of how they're paid is they get the LHA rate of housing benefit for their clients, but they also get an uplift from social services for the support that they should give to their clients. So the ethical companies do exactly what they're told to do, which is they will look after their clients that they've put into these HMOs, and they will have a support worker go in for, normally it's 3 hours a week per client. So that from a landlord perspective is good, because they've got eyes on the house all the time to make sure it's being maintained and it's being looked after. They'll probably pay for a cleaner to go in to look after communal areas. They'll pay for a gardener to go and look after the garden. So the houses are always going to be maintained. However, there are some companies that will take all the additional funding, put their clients into the house and leave them.
And not offer that supported element.
No, even though they're paid to do it,
right?
They just don't do it. And those are the houses then that you will probably hear are being trashed, because they literally haven't got the support or the eyes on the house to find out how it's been looked after. So from my perspective, what's always really, really important, and I have gone down that route, that we have made mistakes, and I have had wrong companies in my house, and they then have taken a lot of managing, so that then we are very much then working with those companies. Say, right, we're going to come in once a month, we're going to inspect any damage that's being caused, you have got to put it right. And but the housing associations and supported living companies that I work with that provide all the support, their houses is with, and I can just, as with any other property that we manage, go in and do a quarterly inspection. It's having to try to do that due diligence up front to make sure that you're working with companies, and that's quite tough.
Give us some clues about what types of due diligence someone who might want to get into this area might need to do.
It's very much a case, I think, of that you are questioning them, how long they've done it for, what experience do the directors of the company have, support workers are employed, what is the care plan, how are they going to maintain the house, who is going to do that maintenance, how many times a week Are there going to be people going into the house? And it's just trying to, as I think with any tenant, it's just trying to find out as much information as you can about their processes and what place.
So you've spoken about having a number of different properties, number of different strategies. Do you have a preferred strategy that you use?
Since Section 24 has come in, then
talk to us about what that is.
Right, so Section 24 was brought in 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I can never remember. I'm not brilliant with dates.
That's
but
all
anyway, Section 24 is the legislation that's been brought in by the government, which now means that as a property owner, I cannot offset the mortgage interest against my income.
Okay.
Which in any other business, if you've got a loan which is for the business, you can offset the interest as a part of your trade.
Okay.
But with property, it's not saying that we can do that, which has meant that, just in very simple language, if I got rent of £600 a month for a house and the interest on my mortgage was £300, I was only taxed on £300 profit. But since Section 24 is coming in and it's being phased in over time, that £600 is all classed as profit.
Okay.
And I cannot offset any element of mortgage interest against that.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So it's hugely affected the profitability of my buy-to-let properties. So any of my buy-to-let properties, which were 3-bedroom houses that I've been able to convert into 4-bedroom houses, the rental income has gone from £700 a month to £1,125. So that is how I'm using that to help offset Section 24.
Right.
And
so
we've started to make the change.
Right. So you've moved from doing single let family properties into HMO properties?
Yes, effectively, because we're renting the house out for social housing. So there are going to be 4 individual people living in the house. So the house has to meet all the regulations with regard to HMO compliance.
Okay.
So the conversion cost obviously is going to be a little bit more than if I was just continuing to rent it out as a family home. But in the long run, it's more profitable.
Okay. So HMOs to working with companies that offer, social housing companies. Is that the broadest part of your strategy, working with social housing?
Personally, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Portfolio, that because I'm looking at how I can maximise my return on my investment. With regard to my lettings business, and this is how then we're working with a lot of other investors, they're investing in the 5-6-bedroom high-end all-en-suite HMOs.
So a number of different. Go on, Sue.
As I say, that just doesn't work for me with my own properties, because none of the properties that I own are large enough to be able to do that. And also it does tie up a lot of capital. But they do cash flow really, really well. So I can understand why I've got investors, particularly overseas investors, London investors, who want to invest in Birmingham, because I get really excited about Birmingham, because there's so much that's going on in Birmingham that's really exciting. So it's a joy for me to work with people who want to invest in Birmingham.
Oh, fantastic. So what's going on in Birmingham that's getting you so excited?
Well, every single day when I drive around Birmingham, I see more cranes, there's more building work going on, there's roadworks, there's so much inward investment. But then if I just take away that, because that's also like public money with roadworks and stuff like that, but we've got things like HS2, which should be completed in 2026. We've got the games are coming in 2022. So again, that's bringing investment. HSBC have just moved their head office here. HMRC although they might not be our favourite people, they're opening a regional tax office in Birmingham. There's a new super hospital that's being built. So there is just so much that is going on that we know is going to have a big impact on the housing market.
Wow, fantastic. Okay, so I'm wanting to go back to social housing, because I know that that's a little known about, I think, property strategy. So you said, I think 4 years ago, someone approached you and asked whether one of your landlords would be interested in this. So someone getting into property today, what kinds of things might they need to do in terms of working in the social housing sector? What's some of your tips there?
Okay, I think you need to make sure that the house is going to be big enough so that it will meet all of the minimum room sizes for a 4-bedroom HMO. Because if your house isn't going to work and be compliant with the regulations, it won't have to be licensed, because you don't have to license until you get to 5 rooms. But I future-proof all of my property that we're going to use for social housing. So we make sure with the room sizes, if they then bring HMO licensing down to 4-bedroom properties, my properties are all going to still get a tick. So that everything will still comply with HMO regulations, I think it is one key thing. Trying to make contact with supported living companies or housing associations to find out whether or not they would want to work with you. But if you are a first-time landlord and you want to get into this market, you will pay increased interest rates, and there are very, very few lenders that will do it. So you need to find a broker who understands this business model. And I work with 2 or 3 brokers who do understand the model and have got access to the right mortgage companies to be able to do that. But it's difficult for me to talk about what the interest rates are likely to be. I do know that they are significantly higher than if you just buy to let, particularly if you're a first-time investor and you don't own any of the property. However, I think the flip side of it is you are getting a much more increased rental than you would if you had the same house buy to let.
Okay. All right, lovely. So I know that you offer a number of different opportunities, whether it's to investors, whether it's to people who want to learn about property. Just talk to us a little bit about your training, mentoring part of your company.
Okay, so I'm passionate about people getting the right education, but not just the education, it's what's right for them as an individual. So all of the mentoring and coaching that I do is very much on a one-to-one basis, so that I can tailor exactly what I offer to each individual client that I'm going to work with. And sometimes it might be somebody that is just totally lost. They've gone on so many different training courses and there's so many shiny new pennies that they don't know which one they actually want to do. So we might just have a 2-hour meeting as a one-off meeting, sit down and say, okay, this is the amount of money that you've got. These are the options of what you could do with it, and run through the numbers so they can see what's going to suit them. And then they're up and running and they're off. I'll always be there to support them if they need that. And then it goes right the way through that if somebody wants to work with me for 6 months, then I normally offer a 6-month mentorship package. And again, that, I think one of the most important things, and I found that is working really successfully for me, is working with those people who've already gone out and spent the money on property education, but they've still got a real fear of going and making that first step and going and buying the first property, because they've got money in the bank and that's almost like a comfort blanket. I've got money in the bank, that therefore I can go and do whatever I want to do. But going and doing whatever I want to do is still really fearful. So I have to sort of like support them through that process, through finding what business model is right for them, how to liaise with estate agents, what to do when you go on viewings, in terms of like having a checklist, how to run the numbers, and then literally helping them all the way through the conveyance process, and then help them through the refurb process as well. So what I offer is a really tailored service, I think, to each individual client that I want to work with. And I've worked with clients who've got, last year, I worked with a guy who's been really successful. He'd got a portfolio of rent-to-rent properties, and he wanted to grow his rent-to-rent property business. So again, we sort of like talked about how he could work with and to find property owners that he could potentially manage their properties. So there's lots of ways that I can work with different people in terms of sort of like what they individually want to do.
Right. And do people you work with come from countrywide or mostly in Birmingham? How does that work? Because I know you're focused in Birmingham, aren't you?
Yeah, no, across the country.
Okay.
So if I count like a couple of clients who I'm working with at the moment, they're both based in London, and they're both investing in the north.
Okay.
So, we have a face-to-face meeting once a month, so they'll come up to Birmingham once a month to meet with me, so that we can talk about what's working well for them, what are they struggling with, what do they need help with, but also to set in place every month an action plan for the following. And then we have a half-hour call every 2 weeks, just so it's not that they're not on their own for a whole month. We touch base in the middle of the month, and they know they've got this to me by WhatsApp, by Messenger, by email, by telephone, if they've got a problem that they need to resolve in between that period of time. So I would like people to feel who I work with that I'm there to hold their hand as much as they need.
So how can people contact you?
If they can, I would normally say they could contact me and friend me on Facebook, but I've got to my 5,000 limit, and I can't work at the minute how I'm going to get around that. But I've got a Facebook group called the Sue Sims Property Community. People can, I've also run a property network meeting, so if people wanted to come along to meet me, there's no upsell. You don't need to leave your credit card behind. There's none of this. Run back of the room and we'll give you an offer. It is literally, it's a daytime meeting for full-time property people. We normally get about 70 to 90 people in the room, and they're all people that are already doing property. So if you just want to be in a room with people that are enjoying what they do, they're growing their businesses, and they've got lots and lots and lots of different business strategies that they're using, it's a great opportunity for you to learn from other people. So have a look at my page, which is called Partners in Property, or you can send me a message through Messenger, or you can telephone me. I'm very, very flexible with how people can contact me, whatever is easiest, really.
Okay, fabulous. Sue, thank you so much for being in conversation with me, and I'm sure people will be in contact with you because I know you're doing great things, particularly around mentoring and coaching. Sue, thank you so much.